provides financial service to the exchange key currency and linking digital bank accounts. QR login is possible using the payment function, and payment can be made simply entering the store name and payment amount through the exchange wallet. We will issue debit card to Signal Exchange members through contact with bank and credit card companies. You need to have an account with the Bank of Kazakhstan in order to get the card issued. You can withdraw cash through the ATM device. Also, you can use debit card in affiliate. The debit card can be used within the limit of 60% of the key currency held according to the exchange membership level. Signal Exchange uses XKGT as a key currency, unlike traditional exchange using US dollar. XKGT is similar to Tether in character. XKGT is a stablecoin based on ERC20 and is not listed on other cryptocurrency exchanges, but can only be traded within the Signal Exchange. Therefore, we base the value and exchange rate of XKGT, and the value may change depending on whether other exchanges are listed. XKGT follows 10 years exchange rate, and various cryptocurrency transactions are possible in XKGT markets. You can also withdraw XKGT like a cash through a non-face-to-face virtual account. Depending on the amount of XKGT you have, you can receive a variety of benefits and participate in many futures events on the exchange. We have a partnership with many Kazakh banks for exchange members. We will provide the following service through strategic partnership with banks. Issue a non-face-to-face virtual account. In addition, we will issue debit card to members who have issued virtual accounts and jointly prove payment business in Kazakhstan. We expect the following impacts according to the strategic partnership agreement with bank. As the number of non-face-to-face virtual accounts issued on the Signal Exchange increases, the number of bank account subscribers increase at the same time. The amount of foreign currency deposit increases as the trading volume of the exchange increases. Profits from deposit and withdrawal fee are generated, and profit from overseas remittance fee are generated. As Signal Exchange registers multinational members, global promotion effects can be provided. Okay. Based on 10,000 members in 2021, we plan to hold 100,000 members by 2025, increasing by 20,000 each year. Due to the increase in trading volume according to the increase in the number of members, the transaction volume will expect increase to $10 billion in 5 years. Signal Exchange has various visions and will make great effort to implement them. We plan to increase the transaction volume with the aim of entering the top 10 global exchanges, attracting 100,000 members, conducting the payment business, and providing service to more than 10 countries around the world, including CIS countries. Through this goal, our ultimate goal is to establish a global investment company. Finally, we are going to look at the roadmap for the Signal Exchange. We started developing the exchange in the third quarter of 2020. We opened the pre-membership in the first quarter of 2021 and are preparing for the grand opening. In the second quarter of 2021, we will start developing the exchange advancement, including futures trading and In the third quarter of 2021, we will provide the upgrading service. In the first quarter of 2022, we will provide the easy payment service and expand the exchange service country to all CIS countries. Today, I have shown Signal Global Exchange to you. So Bitcoin's market price has recently hit $40,000. Just 11 years ago, the Bitcoin's value was very low. In May 2010, Kanye, a resident of Florida, took business in exchange for 10,000 Bitcoin. This is a very famous story, in which Bitcoin's value has now increased more than 8 million times compared to that time. As such, cryptocurrency trading is no longer a worthless investment. How about you start trading your cryptocurrency asset on the Signal Global Exchange, which offers strong security and convenient features? Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.
Let's move on to our next speaker, Armisan Roberto, the co-founder and angel investor at Synopsis Studio. The topic will be Digital China, or how David turned into a Goliath.
Well, Lihan, thank you so much for this fantastic introduction. This is my very pleasure to join the talk. I truly thank the organizers for putting this show together. I have been in China for almost 5 years, and my name is Amir. I'm a co-founder of Synopsis, and during the 5 years of my tenure in China, its digital infrastructure, the components that are evolving, truly inspire me to dive deep into its entire digital infrastructure. And pretty much everything what I'm going to be talking about is entirely based on the facts and my personal perspective and no one else's. If you allow me kindly, I would walk you through what I have learned, where it's all going, and how I see the future and the pure perspective for tech and blockchain and DeFi projects that have some kind of interest to get into the Chinese market. So what is the brief history of China's digital infrastructure like? It all goes back to 1990s when the world was opening up for the internet. Both the West and the East were exploring the promise it delivers. And the China has started with the Great Firewall, which had one specific purpose: control, filter, and censor the information. Since the Tiananmen Square, and today we could think about the Arab Spring, the challenges and political issues in Ukraine and Belarus. And China had learned all these lessons and built its domestic, what we call the intranet. And the Great Firewall was the beginning of everything, while the West was developing a liberal perspective towards the internet. Some people are skeptical about the China's Great Wall. There are different aspects, and both sides, East and the West, they have their different definitions, interpretations. It all depends on the interests. And I feel like from the perspective of a third party, obviously freedom is important, and yet ability to control the information is also important for the sake of building the stability domestically, locally, and after all, internationally. So the Great Firewall defined the infrastructure from the very beginning. In 2000s, the three giants started their rise. It's Baidu, it's Alibaba, it's Tencent. If I could give one single word for every single project that I mentioned earlier, Baidu stood for search, Alibaba stood for e-commerce, and Tencent stood for messaging. Three giants that today are still shaping, acquiring, expanding globally and regionally, or changing the game. And instead of copying the West in a sense that they used to, they are bringing a lot more innovation directly and equally competing with the world. Each of the Baidu and Tencent and Alibaba not only expanded their operations in their respective industries, but also tapped into other industries such as AI, AR, VR, be it the blockchain or DeFi, finance, you name it. All of them have their ecosystems, and the competition inside of China and outside is fierce. And it's bringing innovation to a completely different level, inspiring next generation of entrepreneurs and next generation of startups and next generation of new ecosystems that we're about to explore. For the past 20 years, China's complete economic path, its digital infrastructure, starting with the Great Firewall, the rise of Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent, showed the cooperation between the private and state-based sectors. And the cooperation only led to prosperity, rising more than 500 million people from the poverty, and today more than 1 billion people in China are connected to the internet. If you look at the US, Canada, the European Union, obviously there are advantages in terms of their liberal thinking. And yet, comparing with the speed, comparing with the innovation that China brought on the table, nothing has been done in entire human civilization of its kind. And I do have a reason to believe that politics aside, the hardworking nation, over 1 billion people that are connected online, they are driving a completely new change. They are driving the change in a sense, bringing innovation using the simple phone, and anybody can do anything. And today's blockchain industry is probably one of the best examples where a crypto is being discussed and integrated on a completely new level. So Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent built the foundation. The rise of social media, the China Way, the WeChat, the Weibo, today's Douyin or TikTok, completely redefined the way we communicate, the way we interact, the way we promote. Obviously, the West still has its own platforms that are quite famous. And in China, due to the Great Firewall, information is censored, well controlled. Obviously, there are advantages and disadvantages, and yet, instead of helping competitors, China is helping its domestic players and empowering them to utilize China-made products. After all, KOL or influencer industry is a completely new generation project, or the idea of influencing people using the thought leadership completely redefined the way people buy, the way people interact, the way people make decisions. If in the West, people look at the banners, if people look at the information, mostly in China, in Asia overall, people look at the thought leadership. And the rise of social media, along with the influencer industry, is the next step that really fascinated our entire team. And we figured that being an expert has become far more important than just selling or ads online, than just having the e-commerce shop. And the cases that we remember, a number of them that I'm going to mention very shortly, completely challenged our status quo, and we understood the power of thought leadership in a single country where 1 billion people are connected online. One of the examples about the Chinese girl who used to be a blogger, a journalist, within 4 years had become a thought leader on WeChat that had over 5 million followers. And by promoting a mini car, she was able to sell 50 cars in less than 4 minutes with a single WeChat post. Or a Mr. Bag is another guy who talks about the bags overall, just simple bag that we use on daily basis, be it the luggage, be it the bag, be it the backpack, you name it. With a single promotion, he was able to sell more than 2,000 pieces of bag in 12 minutes. And this only has happened in China, nowhere else. And this phenomenon of key opinion leaders, so-called influencers or thought leaders, are the ones that are shaping, driving the industry to completely different direction rather than ads that we see, be it on Google or Facebook or some other platforms. This is not to say that ads do not work. This is not to say that the importance of content is not important. Obviously, they are quite important. What we have learned in China, specifically in Asia overall, including Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Vietnam, and other countries, people are more of a tribe rather than in the West. People spend time for their logical thinking before they make any kind of decision. In China or Asia, people are more of communal decision-making processes that exist. In the West, every single individual is an entity. And these different cultural gaps or cultural differences, if you will, and diversities and digital aspect or infrastructure that put the weight on it, change the way we interact. And the key opinion leaders, social media, the great China, the great firewall that are operating in China today have reshaped or fundamentally changed how internet works domestically in China. And another interesting aspect is about exporting versus importing. And what do I mean by exporting versus importing? The world, except for China, imported the US or the European made products. I'm talking about Google, I'm talking about Amazon, I'm talking about the Facebook and other platforms that we all know. So the entire world completely depend on these platforms. And China, instead of importing them, is exporting its products. We all heard in one of the most famous ice-breaking, thought-provoking project, TikTok, the Huawei, the WeChat, and the strategy is completely different. And to compete with the Western-made products, the world seems to be not ready to embrace China-made products for obvious reasons, be it the censorship, be it the privacy policy, be it the data management. We can name it the other way around. But the fact that a completely new player is rising up, and without this player, the world may not function for several reasons. And one of the things that I think we have to take into consideration is instead of avoiding them or preventing from interaction, put ourselves into their shoes and start understanding or embracing or analyzing or step into some kind of discussion to understand the game plan and the system. And in order to get into one of the most promising market in China is to play by their game versus bringing the Western-made game plan and try to operate in China, which is a complete failure in our opinion. Well, we spoke about briefly about Huawei and WeChat and TikTok that are reshaping. And not only that, they are reshaping the way we interact in China, but also exporting their products. More than that, they are acquiring startups overseas. And China startups and the big players that I mentioned earlier, Baidu and Alibaba and Tencent, one of the most aggressive players that are aggressively investing and acquiring other projects overseas, including Pakistan, including India. And One Belt, One Road is probably one of the assisting element to join forces. And we look at that from the, if we looked at overall development of One Belt, One Road, China's digital infrastructure, overall startup scene, they seem to be designed to help one another, not to contradict to one another. Whereas in the US, tech startups or giants always compete or not in a harmony with the government. And in China case, it's a completely the opposite. And when it comes to the PR aspect, we spoke about the 1 billion people that are connected. I spoke briefly about Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent, its rise and how they are conquering the world in a good sense of the statement. Their acquisitions, the way they see in the firewall that is built and the exportation of all these products, bringing completely new taste and new flavor. And the PR aspect of it is quite interesting. During our tenure of the PR, we see a lot of tech startups from outside of China that are coming in and have their interest. And what other takeaways that we have learned for these startups or entities or any kind of companies of any kind in any form in any shape that we think have to learn from? A number of first to-do lists that I'm going to talk about is entirely based on on our mistakes in our blockchain company on the research. The first one is just about localization and market research. Without the proper market research and localization of any product or service, regardless of the name of the project, regardless of the size and the shape, regardless of their brand, they are completely doomed to failure. So the market research and localization is extremely important. That's number one. Number two, understanding your target audience in the China tier system. So China has 4 tier systems. The first one is about Shanghai, Beijing, and Guangzhou, extremely well developed regions, if you will. The second one is less developed, and the third and the fourth one, less and least developed regions within China. And when I say region, think about the Shanghai, about 25 million people. Think about the Beijing, over 18 to 20 million people, or Guangzhou is pretty much identical number. And by looking at these numbers, these numbers can replace the countries in the West, be it Europe or Africa or in the US. And by understanding the target audience and tier system, is quite important to understand what you are signing up for, what kind of target audience you're getting into, and localizing your story according to a tier system, the cities that we're talking about, is the second step or element that any company or startup has to consider. The third one is working with thought leaders, understanding social media. As I said a little bit earlier in my talk, this is not about spending X amount of money for your ads and expecting that because you are the foreign brand that the Chinese consumer has to buy your product or service. This is already in the past. Now we're talking about the Chinese that are well-educated, quite picky. They look at the comments, they conduct a due diligence, they research about the brand, and based on that, they're going to make some kind of purchase. And yet, thought leadership, the influencer industry, the one that I spoke earlier, probably one of the accelerating moments that anyone should consider if they are to become successful in China. So people make decisions once the KOLs or influencers recommend the product or service, and their entire reputation, their life and business depend on what they are promoting, and building some kind of rapport with them, building some kind of connections, and developing the communication strategy is extremely important. And of course, social media, the presence in social media in a Baidu, the next elements that the Chinese social media and Chinese search, they do not index any other languages rather than Chinese language. Therefore, localizing, understanding Chinese language, working specifically with native Chinese or the foreigners that understand the Chinese language and they have expertise, it's extremely important to identify the success story within China. Last and not least, working with the media in a good sense when your story could be pitched or should be pitched. And once the company has thought leadership, kind of promotion, social media presence, localized product or story, understanding of the market based on the market research, and working with the media to tell the story, these are the 5 elements that we think are the must-do or to-do list prior to getting into the Chinese market. PR is relatively new concept within China. And given the cultural background, given the evolvement of the industry, it is always changing. But one thing is extremely clear. Anyone, regardless their industry, if it's the tech startup or tech industry or any industry that has interest to get into the Chinese market, has to understand from the start that the digital infrastructure is a completely different, that people and their understanding and the mindset is completely different from the Western ones. And we have to play by the game that is set by the Chinese in a good sense of the statement, rather than bringing the American or the European or the South American, you name it, kind of game plan and thinking that it would work. These are probably the ideas or overall overview that I wanted to bring into this discussion. And I'll be more than happy if there are some kind of questions or comments to comment on. And I even wrote an article along with my colleagues that I could provide within a link in the future, where we have detailed a lot more with very clear case studies to showcase the overall idea that I have just described. And thank you so very much for the time. I had great pleasure and privilege speaking with you. I look forward to getting in touch and being in touch with you. Thank you.
Today, people are choosing open platforms powered by blockchains, ensuring money flows through the hands of everyday people.
Institutional investors are getting engaged.
A new wave of global institutions are investing in Bitcoin and blockchain technology, while demand for cryptocurrencies has reached historic heights, forever changing the way we give to the causes we care about and how we exchange, earn, and spend. The future is decentralized. The world is moving forward. We're building new systems to increase the freedom of money for everyone. But it'll take all of us working together to push past the tipping point.
We have a Binance Smart Chain that's finally released, a $100 million fund for the Binance Smart Chain ecosystem community.
I think that Bitcoin is the solution to 7.8 billion people's problems. They just don't know it yet.
We can watch the world change, or we can change the world.
Dear friends, the summit is now finished. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, all of the viewers and speakers for joining us. Right now, we are witnessing all the revolution that can turn our views on so many common things upside down. And, you know, that's the financial services, that's art, that's creative work, that's all of it. And of course, I would like to take this opportunity and thank the summit organizers and the summit sponsors once again. The summit organizers are the blockchain consultancy company Colibri Group and the cryptocurrency calendar coindar.org. The summit co-organizers are the rating agency Zangle, the cryptocurrency media Prometheus, the Commission of Blockchain Technologies and Digital Economy of all Russian Public Organization Investment Russia. Our sponsors are CybeVein, Bella Protocol, and ARPA Chain. And of course, the diamond partners, EXMO, Stata TV, Conflux, Finam, Plasm Network, PBC Crypto, Listing Help, Bingbon, G2GX, Blockchain Life, Veros, 2Key, and Gate.io. At Synopsis 2021, the Synergies section on coindar.org hosted contests and quizzes of crypto projects. And now, when the summit is over, you can now go and see if you are the lucky one who won a money prize. Exciting, isn't it? In Synergies, you could join the events by Mahadao, Conflux, ARPA, Bella Protocol, Gate.io, Veros, and Gather. And next up is very exciting after party with the progressive electronic DJs Karin Stone and Liran Amar. Stay with us. My name is Maria Stankiewicz, and I was the host of this event. And of course, my co-hosts were beautiful Alena Afanasieva, Lihan Hunvu Lee, and Maxim Sukhanosik. See you guys soon.